If you were following music around 2015, 2016, one thing was undeniable. Justin Bieber was everywhere. It didn't matter if it was on TV, on the radio, on the internet, or even in other people's love lives. It was no longer embarrassing to enjoy Justin Bieber's songs because he simply dominated everything back then. But there was a detail that a lot of people just ignored. Behind that musical phenomenon, there was another story. A story of influence, of change, and of decisions that years later would create a distance. And they cost much more than music.
Damn, JB, where the hell you been? Yeah, I got a new necklace, diamonds.
Maybe this story won't explain to you how Justin Bieber reached the top, but it will give you an idea of how he got back there and with success. But before I say all that, what's up, Action Crew in the house? Listen, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, man, now's the time. Subscribe right now. Look, people are also forgetting to subscribe, and they're also forgetting to leave a like. So subscribe and leave a like before the video starts. Hey, you know it's your boy's t-shirt store. The link is in the description, and let's get going because we have a lot to talk about since today's video is really about opinions, and I want to hear from you guys later. Alright, let's start from the beginning. If you were a teenager or young adult at the beginning of the 2010s, you probably agree with me that it was probably tough for you just to exist. Because man, Justin Bieber was really taking over everywhere as a teen pop phenomenon for kids, for young teens, for little girls, you name it. In this whole thing, he was on magazine covers, on TV shows, being mentioned directly or indirectly, whether it was out there in the United States or here in Brazil. He was also all over the internet. Man, back then, little girls were crazy about boys who had hair like Justin Bieber's, which wasn't my case and probably not yours either if you're watching this. Besides those bands that popped up back then where people also copied Justin Bieber's hair and style, and speaking of music, right? At the time, he was very popular due to hits like Baby and Never Say Never, which I believe was the Karate Kid soundtrack with Jaden Smith. And Eeny Meeny, which was a super catchy song here in my city. My god, there was a radio station that played nothing else. But the most curious thing was that for me back then, when I watched Justin Bieber's interviews, he never hid his love for black music, for hip-hop, for R&B. In fact, he came out of and was shaped by these branches of black music. For example, he was discovered doing covers of these styles on YouTube. He was later mentored by Usher, as we already mentioned in the Usher video. He hung out with Diddy. He had a feature with Ludacris. He almost always said that his biggest idol was Chris Brown. Not to mention that in the music video for his first big hit, a bunch of rappers show up, right? In Baby, Drake appears, and a lot of people show up in the background anyway. So why at the beginning of his career did they box Justin Bieber into a teen pop bubble? But in my opinion, it was always obvious that he didn't really want to be in that world. And as he grew up a little more, things started to become clearer for him and also for the audience. But with that came a bit of a bad boy reputation and some major controversies. That's why between 2013 and 2014 there was the fall of the teen idol. When Justin Bieber got into a lot of trouble, you probably remember, and he went from being the biggest pop star in the world to having a completely worn out image. And I'd say this happened because of about 3 main reasons. Let's lay them out. The first was the excess and saturation of that perfect young guy image that Justin Bieber had, which started to tire out the public. He really, like I said, was everywhere. It was too many shows, too many tours, the guy was everywhere. And when an artist shows up that much, obviously people start to push back. Then those scandals one after another, which contrasted with that good boy image, the nice kid versus the bad boy he wanted the public to see him as, you know? And this is where everything really fell apart. Like for example, in 2014, he was arrested for driving under the influence. There were some cases of vandalism, so to speak, like that time he threw eggs at his neighbor's house. And in fact, in November 2013, Justin Bieber caused controversy in Rio de Janeiro by spray painting walls in the São Conrado neighborhood, including the old Hotel Nacional. The act led to a lawsuit for property damage, which was reopened in 2017 and concluded in 2018 after the singer paid about 20,000 reais. Plus, there were those classic messes, right? Like those constant fights he had with the paparazzi, and the times people said he was a bit arrogant with the public and even with his own fans. In other words, Justin was making headlines, but it was far from being about his music. It was because of all the controversy he stirred up outside the studio. And with that came that famous credibility crisis where the public already already saw Justin Bieber more as a celebrity than as an artist, as a singer, you know? Like, he was just like, I don't know, back in those old days when people would cause trouble and everything they did wouldn't get hyped because like this artist here is known for being a troublemaker, for causing drama, so I don't want to consume any of his stuff. And to be honest, even the fans were kind of letting go of Justin Bieber back then. I remember there was a time when some photos of him leaked like naked on a balcony or something like that, and even his own fans made a lot of jokes about it online. A lot, really. But honestly, to me, he was starting to not be taken seriously musically, but at the same time, I think he was finding himself. And what nobody expected is that from this point on, he would start to be himself. And that came with the musical transition that happened after this turbulent period in Justin Bieber's life. He first reconnected with music, whether through new or old influences, and that mainly came from the people he started hanging out with at that time. The first of them was Kanye West, who since around 2011 was already saying that Bieber was one of his new proteges. Things got closer between the two after Kanye introduced Ricky Rubin to Bieber. There's even a 2015 interview from Rolling Stone magazine where Justin Bieber only praises Kanye West at that time. There was even a recent case, right, where they say Bieber helped Kanye reconcile with Kim Kardashian just to show you how close the two of them are. But what we need to know is that Kanye was the first guy to give credibility to adult Bieber, besides helping Bieber get more involved in the hip-hop circles around the mid-2010s. And that started to change the way the market saw the teenager who was no longer a teenager but a young man, Justin Bieber. I think the second guy who also helped Justin have this more mature image and also get into the rap scene was Big Sean, right? Whom Justin Bieber saw as an older brother, mainly because they already had some collaborations together, like the song As Long As You Love Me. But man, I think that whenever Bieber talked about Big Sean, he talked from this perspective, like, I'm learning a lot from this guy, he's awesome. And even though Big Sean wasn't at his peak anymore, I think he taught Justin Bieber a lot at that time. And the third and last guy who also helped Bieber at that time, who was a bit controversial, at the time it was Travis Scott. And compared to Big Sean, it was different because Travis wasn't as big as Big Sean was back then, right? But he was just starting his career, but he was already hanging out with the crowd. There was even an article at the time in Billboard saying, hey, Justin Bieber is already hanging out with Travis Scott, but that's not the best thing he's doing because Travis is already controversial on his own. Bieber is out there, you know, trying to fix himself. It's not the best move. That's what they thought. I think they shut up when Justin showed up on the song Maria I'm Drunk from Travis Scott's album Rodeo alongside Young Thug. That was really trap, honestly.
But
all these connections showed something about Bieber. It's that he was getting more and more comfortable in this space. And just as important as all that is that everyone Justin Bieber associated with at that time was the most experimental crowd in rap, hip-hop, and black music anyway. And Justin Bieber was probably influenced by that because after that he started wanting to experiment with other rhythms besides pop. I would go even further. I think Justin Bieber started wanting to show more of his personality, what he really likes to listen to and sing in his songs. So he joins up with his old musical collaborator, the producer Pool Beer. And after receiving a demo, Justin Bieber, just with vocals and piano, creates a song together with Pool called The Most. It actually turned out pretty cool.
but
Justin Bieber decided to send the track to Diplo and Skrillex, who were working on new songs for their duo called Jack U. They had actually asked Justin Bieber's manager, Scooter Braun, if the singer had anything new to bring to them so they could give it a fresh touch and include it in this new album that Jack U was about to release. Keeping the original lyrics, Skrillex and Diplo turned it into a dance hit and released it in February 2015. Where Are You Now became a huge hit. Where Are You Now was a success, reaching the top 8 on the Hot 100, won a Grammy, and it was the first time the public saw Justin Bieber more as an artist than a teen idol. And it wouldn't stop there because based on that success, Justin Bieber was going to look for new songs to build a more mature repertoire for his next studio album. Then, in August 2015, after a lot of publicity on the internet, Justin Bieber released his song What Do You Mean? And unlike Where Are You Now? What Do You Mean? Was already designed to win over an adult audience, meaning it was already part of a strategic plan to reach new audiences and new heights in Bieber's career. Which paid off because with the new sound, a new image, and new influences, both the specialized media and fans really enjoyed the track, which was the first Justin Bieber song to debut at #1 on the Hot 100. Besides that, the audience became sure about what was coming next, a much more mature work from Justin Bieber. What happened?
Do you mean?
Then, in just about a month, like in September 2015, Justin Bieber rushed to finish this album, making some changes and some transformations. Then, in November 2015, he dove into tropical music and dancehall pop to finally find his purpose, which was to talk about his breakup with Selena Gomez. Just kidding, I'm really confused. However, what he really wanted was to release his album Purpose, which I don't even need to tell you was a tremendous success. And you must remember how many hits that album had, like, for example, the biggest single from that album, right? And I think it's one of the biggest trademarks of adult Justin Bieber, which is the song Sorry. Just like Love Yourself, which also played a lot and was written by Ed Sheeran, who even has, I think, a version of it out there on the internet, which is just as cool.
If you think that I'm still holding on.
Besides the song company. This track, by the way, has become popular again, and to sum it up, man, this Pose era was really well-rounded, really tight, really well done, you know? In short, it fulfilled its purpose, but there were some problems. With the success of songs like Sorry itself, for example, people already saw Justin Bieber as the king of dancehall, you know? Yeah, he was probably the biggest new name in dancehall or something similar. But this same genre, guys, is a genre that comes from Jamaica. It has Jamaican origins, in other words, from black music. And back then, other artists also caused some controversy because they kind of became really successful with this rhythm, which later even went unnoticed by the public, like for example, Shampoo. And at that time, dancehall was emerging and exploding worldwide once again. And Justin took advantage of that so he could ride that wave before the rhythm became saturated. And because of that, some criticism started to arise about cultural and musical appropriation. There were a lot of people on the internet saying things like, look, Justin Bieber is trying to ride the wave of black music to make a comeback. Others were saying, is he being inspired or is he appropriating? And there were people who said he only helped popularize dancehall, but they also wondered if he just wanted to benefit from that genre. And that was a real debate in the industry at that time. If you were around back then, if you were following things, you know that Bieber's success in 2015, 2016, 2017 was a double-edged sword. At the same time, people liked it, and at the same time, a lot of people were criticizing. But the fact is that during this period I mentioned, he embraced this sound and other subgenres of black music as well. And man, he only released bangers and legendary hits. I remember he had another track recorded with Diplo, and every now and then he would talk about this song in interviews, right? But there was one time when he posted on Twitter, he called out Diplo about what happened to the song Cold Water that they had released. And Diplo replied that he still hadn't finished it, like this happened publicly. You get it? That made the public curious about what this song Cold Water was. So Diplo rushed to finish the track, and the result was another hit. By the way, later Justin Bieber explained that he called out Diplo publicly because he didn't have Diplo's WhatsApp or his phone number, you know? Probably missing his ex, Justin Bieber found a demo of a song produced by DJ Snake with Selena Gomez. He must have thought, man, this song would sound really good with my voice, I'm going to record it too. And that's how the song Let Me Love You was born, another hit for Justin Bieber at the time. Strengthening his connection with rap, he took part in the song Deja Vu from Post Malone's debut album Stoney.
Yeah, I gotta say something, yo.
We'll skip the Despacito remix because at that time Justin Bieber was so hyped that he was the only name who could make that track even bigger than it already was in 2017.
Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito.
And to close out this awesome cycle, I also remember when he teamed up with David Guetta and released the song To You, which for me is Justin Bieber's second best, honestly.
Comes to you,
total relevance and musical respect restored. And you can see that at that time there was Justin Bieber for everyone's taste, Latin Justin Bieber in electronic music, and Justin Bieber kind of in pop, who also moves through EDM. Anyway, the fact is that he really wanted to make the whole world know that his influences came from black music. And he would do that on his next studio album. So in 2020, he releases Changes, which is pure R&B with trap, and it was the respect from the streets that Justin Bieber wanted. This album also came with other songs that are really memorable from Bieber, like Yummy. Yeah, you got that Yummy, 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 Yummy. And my favorite Justin Bieber song of all time, which is Intentions, Yummy.
There's the
Feat
with Quavo.
In fact, just so you can see how much Justin Bieber likes this kind of music, in any performance of Intentions, which was massively promoted on TV shows at that time, you see Justin Bieber completely different, man. The guy is super happy, he's super excited, and you see people in the comments saying things like, man, I've never seen Bieber so happy, so cheerful, so excited as he is when he's performing Intentions. But of course, criticism came from both critics and the public as well. Well, now they're saying that Justin was leaning on R&B to actually maintain the success he had already achieved in the previous era. But the big question that remained was like, man, does he really belong in this R&B space that he's claiming so much? This discussion gained a lot of traction when the album Changes was submitted to the Grammy Awards the following year as Best Pop Album. In other words, they didn't put Changes in the R&B categories. This made Justin Bieber really pissed off. Bieber complained about this a lot and did so publicly. He argued that the work was undeniably R&B, citing chords, melodies, vocals, and hip-hop beats, and also stated that the Academy's classification was strange, although he thanked them for the nominations. In response to Justin Bieber, the president of the Recording Academy, you know, the Grammy, Harvey Mason Jr., gave a statement to Pitchfork magazine, quote, Kayo, we use our best efforts to put people where they want and where they should be, and we try to evaluate them in the best way possible. If Justin Bieber felt that this was the kind of record, then, you know, I'll just leave it at that. Close quotes. And part of the audience reinforced this argument from Harvey Mason Jr. because, man, like, there was no way he could talk about black music and be entered in the black music categories if he didn't have roots there. His roots were in teen pop. Besides that, people said that he benefited from music with roots in black culture, but he didn't face the same barriers that black artists face. And one of the harshest criticisms back then was that he presented himself as a pop artist whenever it suited him. And then that turned into another debate, a sub-debate, which was about appropriation versus privilege. But Bieber wasn't going to give up, and in 2021, he tried to do justice to his musical repertoire by releasing the album Justice. But the discussion about Justice wasn't just about the sound itself, it was about the concept and the choices made for the album. And especially that whole controversy about using Martin Luther King's speeches. The album has interludes with Martin Luther King's speeches that are connected to the theme of justice. The big problem is that the songs on the album are mostly about love, relationships, and personal life. And then people would say, man, what do talking about love, relationships, and Justin Bieber's personal problems have to do with racial justice? Man, I remember that at that time too, Bieber had given an interview saying something about how this album would help about the George Floyd case, help give visibility. I don't really remember what it was. I'll try to look it up and add it to the edit, but it was related. He made a statement about it. And there was also the fact that he put Daniel Caesar and Giveon on his first single, the big hit Peaches, to add that support and racial dimension too, not just in the song, but in the album as a whole. Anyway, things I remember from that time. Do you guys remember anything like that too? Comment down below, leave it in the comments, because man, the whole rollout for this album was really messed up, really disorganized. I think Justin didn't really know how to communicate very well in some things, and even though the album is really good, man, the whole concept and the story behind it were pretty wild at the time. But a lot of people tried to understand Justin's side, saying that at that time he wanted to add more weight and depth to his work. So he thought that this theme would be, well, appropriate for that time, but that didn't really come through in the songs, and a lot of people accused it of being being just a kind of cause-based aesthetic and nothing more? As I mentioned, there was a lot of online debate about the album's concept, if you recall, but it didn't lead to the album or Justin Bieber being cancelled. Quite the opposite. It was more a criticism about coherence than about rejection, and just as important, about what Justin Bieber represented. Then the issue starts to get a little heavier for him, just like the memes that started popping up, right? They began sharing old videos of Justin Bieber in the hood with black people. There were tons of memes about black Justin Bieber, especially Jamal Bieber, which became very popular then. And I think with his latest work too, Daisies, I think he found himself a little more with these issues. Yeah, he started to separate a bit more what is a tribute, what is a reference, and also about the space he is able to enter. I can't say that 100% here, right? Because, well, I'm not Justin Bieber, I'm not close to him, I don't know him. But I think he found a maturity as a person and as an artist, and now he can communicate that a bit better to the world. And I think a lot of people who criticized him back then because of that can now understand a bit more. But we know, right, that throughout history, a lot of people have appropriated not only black aesthetics, but also Latin aesthetics and the aesthetics of people from other continents anyway. Many cultures are careful about that now. We can see people's perspective, but we also try to understand the references Justin always wanted to include, right? So with that, over time, people's perception of him really started to change. Not 100%, far from 100%, but it started to change. Because despite the criticism, Justin never hid where he got his references from, right? He always mentioned the R&B artists, the hip-hop crowd, and at no point did he ever try to pretend that he created that sound. And at the end of all this, there may be debate, there may be criticism, but there's one thing that's hard to deny. It was exactly this move toward the sound that was already taking over the world that took Justin Bieber out of the most criticized phase of his career and put him back on top, with some reservations that people have, and for good reason. He came back not just as an artist who marked a generation or even more than one. He came back as an artist you might question, but you can't ignore. And for those who like to play the record backwards, just go to the audio options and switch to Klingon. There's more content for you there, because anyway, I'm wrapping up here. Big hug from Gerson Saldanha. See you in our next video, and thanks.